No matter where you are on your journey, networking is vitally important. Of course, tapping into the resources in your community is crucial for seasoned business leaders, but perhaps even more so if you are a startup venture new to the market. The issue is that networking can be time-consuming, intimidating, and exhausting. And frankly, it isn't so easy for some people. Is there a better way? The answer is yes. And what if that better way was sustainable, more connected, and had the power to help you grow over the long term? On this episode of the Integrate and Ignite Marketing Podcast, my guest, Chris Borja, shares his own struggles with networking that he experienced early in his career and how he came to define a new and different way to go about this vitally important part of successfully launching, scaling, and growing a business. Join Chris and me as we discuss the different categories of networking, its true value, because it's about more than sales, and how, if done correctly, it can bridge the gaps that will ultimately help you reach business goals, the skills you need, and his 7-step process that will enable you to build a powerful network. Welcome to the Integrate and Ignite podcast. I am so thrilled to have Chris Borja with us today. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yep, I'm a former shy introvert and I'm a consultant, trainer, speaker, author around the topic of business networking.
Well, I tell you, networking is so vitally important today for anyone out there. And we're really going to hone in and focus on the importance as it relates to networking from a business standpoint for disruptors and innovators and people starting their own business for the first time, let alone trying to scale and grow it. Why, after all these years in business, did networking, such a vertical concept, really interest you?
Well, I was looking for a better way and I hadn't been exposed to networking for until like the last 10 years. Actually, it's 2000, yeah, a little bit over 10 years. But I was in a direct sales business at the time and was doing what everyone else was doing. I was doing the cold calls and reaching out to friends and family, and I was buying lead lists of people that had responded to an ad, and it was all very time consuming and it was exhausting. And I would leave the day, just spent and felt like I could never take any time off because I was always in prospecting mode. And dinner time was also prime calling time where people are finally getting home, and just always dealing with that. And when I ran into the world of networking, I saw a better way in that I found a few people at the first event I went to, and they just looked so calm and relaxed and composed, and people would come to them with referrals. And I looked at that and I said, if people came to me with referrals, that looks a lot easier than what I had been doing. And I said, I got to learn how to do this and have people come to me and say, hey, Chris, can you help this person? Here's what's going on with them. I want to see if you could help them. So after that, that was the beginning. I was just looking for a better way to grow and market my business.
And so the shy, meek self that you were many, many years ago was really brought to life through this concept of networking. And it seems so simple. But for you to enter those doors for the first time was a big deal. Do you remember how you felt and what you were thinking and what you did to rehearse, going in through the threshold, if you will?
Yeah, I do remember clearly like it was yesterday. And I remember practicing in the car what I was going to say. I had no clue of how it was going to go down because I hadn't been to one before. And of all things, the first event I went to was a speed networking event, which is kind of like speed dating without the dating part. It was a speed networking event, which made it a little bit more intimidating because of how fast it went by. But I was watching what everyone else would do. But I remember walking into that first event, I was extremely nervous because I didn't know what to expect, and no one had told me what to do or how to conduct myself or any of those things. So yeah, I was pretty nervous walking into that first event for sure.
It's interesting. We have a lot of solopreneurs who listen to the show, and entrepreneurs, and visionaries who might have 1,200 people working for them, and every single one of them has a different mindset about the importance of networking and the need. There's so many different categories to network within. I mean, we're at the forefront of the show. We're talking about sales to begin with. But networking for venture capital, networking for a new ops supervisor, whatever it might be, is really what we want to hone in on today and talk a little bit more about. It's not just sales. You speak on the topic nationally on networking to big audiences alike. Explain to us the different categories of networking, its importance on a business, and why ultimately you've been able to build a business around this very singular topic.
Yeah, networking initially, as I shared, was what I was just trying to get prospects because I had run out of people to talk to. And I said, there's a lot of people here. That's a lot of people I could give business cards out to, and I could collect their information, try to follow up with a sales appointment, hopefully. That was my goal when I walked into that event. I was doing that for a while, and I realized, I think I'm doing something wrong because I feel like I'm not really connecting with people. And I feel like there's people that are kind of pushing me off and not really interested in what I have to say. I said, I got to be missing something. And from there, I said, well, let me think about why people are even here. Well, they're not here to buy from me. They're not here to buy from everyone. They're here to promote their own stuff. So I'm thinking, if everyone's here to promote their own stuff and not to buy, then how could this be productive for anyone? And I started, so from there, I started figuring out ways to serve and just find out what other people needed instead of what I wanted to promote. And as a result of that, it started building relationships, and they started sending me referrals and business because I became trustworthy and likable to them because I was more concerned with what they're looking to accomplish and trying to help them out. But with what you're talking about as far as networking, the true value is not just in getting sales. I believe that's going to happen anyway. But if you look at anyone, where they're at currently and what their goals are, there's always something that's in the gap. So if they're here and their goals are here, there's something that's keeping them from their goals currently. And regardless of what that is, whether they don't have enough time, they don't have enough financial resources to back them, they don't have the skills or the knowledge to do a certain portion of what's required. No matter what's in that gap, networking bridges that gap. So it's actually the fastest way for somebody to reach their goals, is because if you look at time, money, resources, knowledge, all of those things can be fulfilled and satisfied with one person.
Mm-hmm.
One person could fill the financial gap of what's missing. One person can take over tasks and fill the need for not enough time. So regardless of not enough skills, same thing. You don't have the skills. Let's find somebody. I could learn all the skills and take next couple of years learning it, or I can find somebody that's already skilled in this area, and boom, there's the bridge. So that networking is actually a bridge between where the person currently is at and what their goals are.
It's relationships, right? And whether it be a prospect or, we're trying to find a new financial planner for the agency right now. And it is phone calling and meeting and relationships. Someone knew someone who knew someone. And that is ultimately what really, really helps when you are trying to scale fast and grow or find a needle in a haystack. It is all about that. Now, there are ways to network and there are ways not to network. What are some of the tried and true approaches that work well? And what are the sort of things that turn people off?
Yeah, the things that turn people off are a lot of things I did when I started, and many people do when they started, is being so self-focused,
Right.
being so concerned with what you're trying to accomplish. It's very difficult to truly connect with somebody when in the back of your mind, you're thinking the whole time of like, when do I switch this around to when do I get to talk about what I do? Or how do I shift this conversation so we can start talking about something I want to talk about, or that leads to my services or my products. And that's where a lot of people start because they just don't know any better.
Right.
The best way to do it is really to relax. So I tell people to be themselves. So I shared in the beginning, I was a former shy introvert. I think still by nature, I'm still an introvert, but there are people that are introverts that are great networkers. There are people that are extroverts that maybe aren't great networkers, that just because somebody's comfortable in a networking situation and meeting people and being in a group or a crowd, it doesn't make them a good or a bad networker. Their comfort level does not impact that. And that's initially what we were thinking, is that, oh, I just want to be more comfortable when I'm in this kind of environment. But that's not what makes a good networker. So what I say is for people to truly be themselves. If they're introverted, there's things that they can do that would help them in their networking journey and their networking activities, because they'd be more likely to not need to be the life of the party, which means it leaves a lot of room for them to listen and to engage and to truly ask deep, thought-provoking questions, or
Hmm.
really questions to get to know the person behind the business and the title and the profile, and create a really good connection. Extroverts, on the other hand, they have some amazing qualities to where their energy just grows through the exchange and the interaction and the conversations, which means that they can be great at keeping the conversation going and integrating and making sure people feel comfortable with what they're with their activities at the event. If somebody is new, the extrovert can integrate them into the conversation because that's their comfort zone. So
Yeah.
I would say for people to be themselves, focus on other people, focus on others, and build a connection first, because we've all heard that saying that you only have one chance to make a good first impression, which is true. But if you build a connection and a relationship with somebody, you'll have more opportunities. It's not going to just be that one time. And so that's what I encourage people to do. So focus on getting to know the people behind the profiles and the titles and all that stuff, and get to know the actual person, because that's where the magic happens anyway.
Yeah, it really is. And I think there are people out there that just have a gift for making individuals feel like they're the only person in the room when they're talking to them. And it really has to do with asking them questions about themselves and what they do, those open-ended questions, not yes, no questions, that really, create that dialogue. Talk to us about the importance and what types of questions you can ask to create dialogue instead of those closed, ended questions.
Yeah, good point. There's a big difference between the closed-ended questions where it's just a fast answer, yes, no. But the open-ended questions lead to more. And once you have a few of them, you don't need a ton,
Mhm.
because each answer will lead into a follow-up question. So for example, just something real simple: did you grow up here in fill in the blank, whatever city you're meeting in? So I'm in Columbus, Ohio right now. So Lori, did you grow up, if we met here, did you grow up here in Columbus? And you can
I
both.
didn't. I grew up in Wheaton.
Oh, Wheaton. So awesome.
Yeah,
So what brought you to Columbus? How do you go from Wheaton to Columbus? So you see how just
yeah,
that alone,
yeah.
it leads to another question, but it's authentic. It's a real
Yeah,
conversation. And I say for people to do, to ask questions that's really in their heart, not
yeah,
really just like, I don't want to teach people like a list of mechanical play 20 questions. But now I'm like, oh, well, what did bring you here to Columbus? If we, hypothetically, if we met here in Columbus, what did bring you here, and what was that transition like for you to come to Columbus? How do you like it compared to where you grew up, and what do you like and what do you not like? So you can see, you can have actual conversation. Now, none of this is business related, which is actually better. And I encourage people to talk more about non-business related stuff, because that's where you get to know the person. That's where you get
yeah.
to know what they're about. And as you build that connection, then people actually care. So we've all been where uh, there's a big group of business people when you talk business, but there's really not a lot of connection made between somebody and their profession.
Hmm.
And the chances of there being a connection on the business side is so slim that we're limiting our possible positive outcomes, because the chances of you or me buying from each other the first time we meet is extremely slim. But if we build a relationship and a connection with each other, now that opens up and turns into what I call a reverse funnel, where instead of talking to like hundreds of prospects to lead down to that one purchaser, you and me meeting at an event is that one connection that opens up to hundreds or even thousands of people that I know that you don't know, or that you know that I don't know. And that's what
Yeah.
networking is. So it reverses the funnel, which is amazing, because you don't need to talk to hundreds of people to start getting results. You can do it with just a handful of people.
And I think, back to the point that you made at the beginning, people don't like to feel like they're being sold. So when you go into these networking events, and we'll talk about some types of events here in just a minute, I think that makes all the difference in the world. It shows that you actually are there, that you care about what the individual is saying, that you want to get to know them, which is, the beginning of a relationship that could turn into great, great things. And I do believe people miss the boat on that all too often. I'll never forget an event that I went to. I had this exact conversation in the late 80s with my father about networking. And I joined a business marketing association down in Denver. And I went to the first meeting, and someone tried to pick me up. And I was just so turned off by it, and that, and I went back, the following day, I'm talking to my father in the office about it. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So you need to push aside. If you're going there to network and to grow the business and to grow the relationships, go with that in mind. Don't scare people off.
Yep, and you're right, and a lot of it is also a team effort as far as networking. So one person, just as you experience, can ruin the whole networking feel for you because you think this
Right.
is what it's about. I don't need this. This is not what I'm here for, and it's a team. So when I look at networking, it's about creating a community, and the stronger that everyone can create a community, that becomes a resource for others to meet them.
That's
And
right.
initially, I only saw the product I was selling as the value that I offered. They say, Chris, what value do you offer? Oh, well, I offer this product and here's how we help people. And if they didn't purchase or they weren't interested in that, I truly didn't understand that I actually had other things to offer. You could offer your knowledge, your skills, your ear for others, just like listening and being there. You could be an encourager, you can be a connector and introduce them to others in your community. So really, when you talk about networking, it's not an individual game, it's a team game, to where we all help one another grow. And we do that through community, and we do that through
Yeah,
understanding that everyone brings something different to the table, even beyond their products and services.
I
And when you
agree.
do that, it leads to so many more positive outcomes just as a result of being in people's circles. So there's a big difference between what I say is prospecting versus networking. So most people in this in the goal of scaling their business, grow, they're actually prospecting more than they are selling. And there's nothing wrong with it, but just know what you're doing. If you're prospecting and you know you're prospecting, cool, you're good with that. You're consistent with what you're trying to create. But if you think you're networking and you're actually prospecting, then that's where there's a problem, because it won't lead to many results, and it can become a waste of time, and it can leave a bad impression on others. But really, networking is truly about building authentic relationships so that we can share resources and create win-win situations for
Yeah.
everyone. So that's really what it's about.
It is. And let's talk a little bit about some of the nonverbals that people can pick up on real quickly. We give a sales training to all of our clients on how to sell on the trade show floor. And the reason we started this years and years and years ago was, marketing. We were creating these great, great tools for salespeople. And salespeople either didn't know about those tools or they weren't implementing them correctly. So we'd go and invest all these monies, at a trade show, and the outcome was not where it needed to be because there was misalignment between teams internally. So as a part of this training that we give sales teams on marketing alignment, a lot of it has to do with how you show up. So not just clothing, not just your look, not just your professionalism, but how you show up from a nonverbal standpoint. And we talk a lot about the fact that, standing with your arms crossed or talking to other people is a way, eating in front of people is a way that people really get, they feel that you're disingenuous. Talk to us about some of those nonverbal cues that are really important to show people that you are interested in what they're talking about.
Yeah, the nonverbals actually operate at the subconscious level on both parties. So for us, we might not realize, like you said, that arms are crossed like this. And if I cross my arms, there's a very good chance that while we're talking, you will also cross your arms. You don't know why you did it. You're not trying to mirror me intentionally, but you just naturally will do that. And people will they pick up on those subconscious physical cues without even thinking about it.
Right.
And that's where it's either made or broken. And the message can come across as, like you said, inauthentic or salesy when it's not about the person. So as far as a nonverbal communication, especially like on that trade show floor, another couple of simple things is to be in front of the table rather than behind. That
Absolutely.
subconscious, that being behind the table creates a physical barrier that they don't realize that they should, it's now there, that you're leaning over the table and there's
We don't
something.
allow, exactly, we don't allow chairs. I mean,
Yeah.
if there's a conference room, that's one thing, but chairs, we don't allow with our clients, and it takes them a little while. But if you think about it, it's like you're sitting down, you're not interested unless you've got a one-on-one meeting with someone.
Yep. And that's where they don't think about that. They're like, well, where's my chair?
Yeah.
Well, we don't have a chair because it creates a little bit of a distance between you. And also just posture as far as eye contact is important. Looking at the person, not staring them down like a staring contest,
Yeah.
but making eye contact. And you could occasionally break. It's not like you're just staring, but making eye contact for important parts of that conversation, not looking at your watch, not looking around at other things you could be doing, other people that you might be missing out on that you want to talk to. It's just being engaged with that person. But I think it's important to get to know the person behind the title, the profile,
Right.
because even in that trade show situation, so many times, and you've probably seen this too, the person that's at the booth is trying to sell because that's what they're there for. They invested money, they want to get as much of their information out. But look at this. What if the person that they're talking to is a CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation, but they're giving them a flyer like they're
Right.
a client, or like they're
Yeah.
like they're just a purchaser, and they're much. So why didn't they pick up on that? Well, because they didn't have the conversation. They didn't get to know the
Right.
person
And
first.
and the salesperson then feels like they've done their job because they've handed out a piece of collateral, but in the meantime, they don't have anything personal, on the individual. We don't allow collateral to be handed out with our clients. We truly force them to gain insight, gain information about the individual, input it into the database that we're talking about, that we're building throughout the show. And then when they follow up, we send or overnight the collateral material. It doesn't get put into the bag with a million other pieces in it. And then when you get back to the office, it doesn't sit in the corner of the office and never get opened. There are great ways to network properly, and selling on the trade show floor is one of those. You brought something up very interesting at the beginning of the show, and that was, the personalization of everything. Write down something personal about the individual that you're talking to, so that when you do follow up, you can ask them how their son's game went that night or whatever it might be. That is also about building that relationship.
Yep, absolutely. There's a story I share that when I was a kid going to the dentist, and the dentist
It's
knew that I
never
played.
fun.
Yeah,
It's not even fun as an
it's
adult.
it's never fun, but the dentist would always talk to me about my team because I was a pitcher on my little league team. And it's 6 months to a year between dental visits, but she would always remember that and she would always say it. But I thought about it, so I didn't think about this until I was already an adult and doing the networking training. I said, well, wait a second, how did she remember all that stuff, that I was a pitcher and I was playing on my little league team and all that kind of stuff, the name of the team and everything. And I realized it wasn't that she remembered that, but they have our
A little
folder.
dossier on you.
And
Yeah.
inside the folder, it probably has it written in there, because I don't know how she could keep track of, dozens and dozens of patients per day and remember all of them, let alone over 6 months or a year. So just like your notes that you're putting into your database is like that note for the dentist to say, oh, Chris likes playing baseball and he's a pitcher on his little league team. So she would talk about that, which created a connection, and it made it a little bit less painful to go to the
Yeah.
dentist
I
because I was
love
having
that.
this conversation. But that's the same thing as adults. It's still appreciated to remember those little facts and little notes to make it to make it a true connection to
Yeah.
where you're really connected with the person and what they're about.
Let's talk about some of the different types of events, because immediately I think people go to the speed dating event that you talked about. Still certainly an important part of a lot of what people can gain through developing relationships, great introductions. You know, you've got a lot of people in one room at any given point in time. There's opportunity there. But I think there's some very, very unique ways that people can take a look at networking as well. One of them, of course, is trade show. We've talked about that. We had a client years ago who we developed basically an event at his office for a grand opening. He had 20 investors that he wanted to get in front of, 20, small number, that was it. We invited all those individuals to this event. About 2/3 of them entered through the doors. We had key talking points established in advance. It was really a way for us to tour them around, to get to know more about the leadership team, to feel confident in the ask that we were ultimately going to get to, not on that day, but ultimately that we would get to. And we wanted to create a little bit of competition in the room too, quite frankly. We wanted to make sure that they knew that they weren't the only, opportunity in town. It worked phenomenally. And this company 2 years later had $1 billion IPO. And so there are all sorts of different ways that we can network, specialized events, pitch slams. Another great way to network. We should talk about pitch decks a little bit too, and presenting those. What are some of the unique ways that you've seen people develop networking events to help their business?
Yeah, networking, when you understand true networking, which is creating those connections, relationships, collaborating, sharing resources. When we look at it in that way, then it turns almost anything into a networking opportunity. It might not be a networking event, but it turns into a networking opportunity. So going back to when my kids were younger and I was working on this direct sales business, and I would see people as prospects. Everyone I looked at as prospect. Oh, I should talk to them, because I was trained that, they see dollar
Right.
signs above people's heads. But what happened is that it created discomfort in starting the conversation, because I had ulterior motives right away. Even from the first conversations, it was felt kind of manipulative in a way to try to steer them in this direction. Now, what happens when we authentically connect, those opportunities pop up, and we, instead of me selling, to what I do now is instead is providing solutions. So just like what you were doing is you're providing solutions for people.
Right.
You don't need to sell when you're providing a solution for a need that they have. And building the relationship positions you in that room, like you had that room with investors and people that you want to do business with. When you create that space now, and then you help them identify a need that you can solve, you don't need to sell the way everyone else needs to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the biggest differentiator between when we're truly networking. So as far as events and ways to create that, I would say to join in existing events already as a starting point.
Associations, trade
Yes.
shows, whatever it might be.
Yep, associations. And there's pros and cons to different associations, because you can join your industry organization or association, and that's where all your competitors will also be. So you could get the cutting
Right.
edge, what's happening in the marketplace. Fantastic. But so go to those. But I would say to also look for the complementary associations where it's not your industry, but you run across people that you want to do business with, or that you could partner with, or that you're a complementary role to them. So for example, a realtor going to a mortgage lenders association would be a great thing to do instead of going to just the realtors
Right.
association.
The associations that your clients belong to, those sort of things, or that the industries that you serve, not necessarily what you do. It would be, we're an integrated marketing communications firm. So we are a member of the Colorado Business Aviation Association, because we have clients in aviation, SaaS solutions, because we've got SaaS clients. I mean, all those sort of things, I think, create great opportunity. I also think that there's another way that people shy away from quite often, but I'm going to tell a story. Years ago, when I had 10 different clients that I knew I wanted to do business with during a 2-year time frame. And I set my goal on landing each one of those. And as I would study these 10 different companies and the individuals within them, I asked myself, what can I do to get in front of these individuals? A phone call, an email, a direct mail piece, just to your point, is not going to do the job. It will get shoved aside, even if it ends up in their inbox. So I seeked out areas that I knew these individuals would be. And in one situation, I wanted to land Orange Glow as a client. Great national CPG brand. They were bought by Arm & Hammer years later. Great entrepreneurial story behind it. Just really exciting brand. And Joel Apple was speaking at an event. I bought a ticket to the event. And afterwards, I went up and introduced myself. And, I didn't talk to him about what I did, why I was there, or anything. I just introduced myself, followed up with an email the following day. And, 2 weeks later, we had an appointment. And 4 weeks later, we landed the launch of a new wood floor product that they had. And that was really quick. And there was a lot of luck involved in that, but I created the opportunity. I networked to make it happen. Why do so many people shy away from that sort of thing? Or why does it fail in some situations too?
I think honestly, most people just never learn how to do exactly what you just did. That's a lot of skill of what you did that most people don't understand. And they're looking to create these partnerships and these opportunities, and they want that. But sometimes it's not just that they don't know how to do that, or it could be that they don't have all the pieces
right
together to where they feel comfortable doing that, or to where when somebody looks back at them, they don't look like they're worthy of that partnership or that business. Or so it could work either for the person that's making the approach, that maybe they seem too big. So mindset comes into play. Like, do you believe that you can truly help them? Because you can try to sell whatever to anybody. You can try to sell high ticket product and services. But if you don't really believe that you're solving a problem for them, you're probably not going to even get in the door. But you had a strong belief that you can help them, that you can make a difference.
How often does just fear come into play?
Well,
like
everything. That's
yeah,
the first thing. And it stops people before they even get started. And it doesn't look like fear in most cases. It looks like avoidance. It looks like busyness. It looks like excuses.
Anything to do to not have to do it. Yeah.
Right. The fear is disguised. So for example, when I was in my shy introvert days, I didn't say, oh, I'm shy, I don't go to this event. I just found a way to be busy and not attend.
Right.
And that's the danger in it, is that we often can fool ourselves into thinking that we're not really avoiding something, but we are, and it's keeping us from success.
Yeah, it does. There's no doubt about it. What are the different success ratios of people that network versus the non-networkers, the people that rely on the email, the voicemail, the text, whatever it might be, to achieve the sales goals or the scaling goals that they might have?
That will be different for different companies, different people, obviously. But as far as the success rate, I would say it's measured in the size of the opportunities that can be created through networking. And I feel like they're much larger, because somebody who's doing the cold outreach and emails, that's perfectly fine if that's what they've been doing. But if they're honest with themselves, they're going to realize that that strategy is not working as well as it once did.
Right.
And it requires a change in strategy and mindset and philosophy to one that's more focused on community, one that's more focused on appreciating diversity and uniqueness and what you bring to the situation, what other people bring to the situation. And it's a way that's sustainable. And to paint the picture of what the difference is between the old ways of prospecting, is that when we prospect, we're sifting and sorting, which means that once they go into the cold pile, the cold bin, rarely, if ever, unless it's on some kind of automated program to send them a message every now and then, which is cool. It's a good thing to just like reach out to them. But the problem with that is that there's not really a connection and a community there. Because how many times people say, oh, call me in 6 months, and you call them in 6 months, they're like, oh yeah, they didn't remember. That was a blow off, right? That wasn't like, really call me in 6 months, I'll be interested then. That was really like, don't bother me. And then most people never follow up in 6 months. But what if it's a connection and a relationship, and you connect on social, on their Facebook, their LinkedIn, whatever platforms they use, Instagram, TikTok, whatever but you just stay present in front of people and you're connected to that person. So
Mhm.
whatever you do, if they already know what you do, then now you just need to be present. You need to be top of mind, which people understand being top of mind. But there's so many different ways in today's world to stay in touch, stay in front of people. And it's a lot more relational and not transactional about, hey, you
Yeah.
ready to do business yet? It's more about engage, like if they celebrated an anniversary, or whether it's their work or personal life, or they had a birthday or any kind of celebration, they got promoted, they got an award. Why not be there for them to congratulate them in that positive moment that they're experiencing, and your name resurface
Right.
all the time. So I think that's where the difference between prospecting, it it's sifting and sorting to get to the sale. When you're networking and truly networking, everyone that you meet becomes an added part of the community that you're creating, because
Mhm.
and it's a rejection proof way. So for people and companies that are struggling with either hiring or retaining salespeople, because there's less and less people that are really adept at sales nowadays, it's like becoming more of a lost art to
Mhm.
truly the salesmen of old are not here. And it's not the same. But what if they can do it in a way that there's no rejection,
Right.
because you're giving people an opportunity to do business with you to solve their problem, but there's no rejection because you're putting it out there, but you're not hard selling the thing because they need it more than you need to sell it to
Right.
them. So that's the difference, is that is networking, you're adding to the community all the time, whereas prospecting, you always have to have new people. Networking, you have all of them in your community that you can always go back to your community and say, hey, I'm looking to connect with a person in XYZ industry,
Mhm.
company, title, and be able to get leads and referrals of an actual introduction to that person, which is going to lead to more results
Yeah,
than.
I think it will too. And we're in an era where personalization is so important. And I believe most people think of personalization as personalizing content when people are traveling down the funnel on, and what it is that they're looking for. There is a disconnect in personalization with one-on-one interaction when it comes to that. So for instance, that prospect that you're following, and you've got them on LinkedIn, to go in and comment on a LinkedIn post that they may have just issued is a way that you can personalize. Actually sending them a congratulatory card on their anniversary is a way to personalize things. Picking up the phone and leaving a voicemail is a way to personalize things. Don't forget about true personalization versus content personalization when it comes to really scaling and growing your company. So many incredible thoughts today, Chris, and incredible insights for the individual, for the naysayer out there. What do you have to say to them about the success that can be achieved? We've given a lot of examples today. The success that can be achieved through strong networking and not just prospecting.
Yeah, the opportunity, when we prospect, we're looking to push one product or whatever is in our arsenal, or our services or products that we offer. However, when you truly network, it opens you up to much larger. It opens you up to a sustainable business growth model, to where you get ongoing referrals through the people that you meet. So instead of selling a product one time, think of selling multiples through connections that they have. So each person is valuable, because we've all sold somebody where that was it. We made a
Yeah,
sale.
one and done.
Tomorrow
Yeah,
we need another sale. So we got to
yeah.
start over again, and that's it. So we don't even have, but what if we create a relationship with that person, to where not only do they purchase, but we stay connected to them, to where they continually become a resource for us, for other
Mhm.
people. And that's what we really want anyway. Something that's sustainable. It's something that we can grow, and utilizing what we already have. So for many
Yeah.
people, if they're truly networking, the people that are already in their network is probably enough. If they truly networked with the people that are already in their circles, they could probably easily get through a year, 2 years, 5 years
Mhm.
worth of growth, simply through farming and being able to rebuild those relationships that they already have, even if they didn't meet anybody new from this day forward,
Yeah.
because everyone already has it, especially been in business for a while.
Well, and feeling comfortable asking. So we've got some referral networks that we've established with the agency, and you know, taking them to lunch, taking an individual lunch and say, these are the type of clientele we're looking for. Let me know if you know of anyone is part of the equation here. And and having people that feel comfortable networking on your behalf too, to provide those referrals. With most sales coming through referral or existing clients, this is a very, very important topic that people really need to be considering today.
Yeah, and the relationships is just like a bank account that you build your relational bank account. And when people don't feel comfortable asking for a referral, for an appointment, for a sale, usually it's because they haven't done a good job building a relationship, and that's what makes it uncomfortable. But if you think of a strong relationship that you have, you can ask them anything. But most people don't know that. So there's relationship strength. A 10 would be somebody that helps you move. A 10 is somebody that you can talk to at 2 a.m. if you had something come up. You'd call them, you text them if something's wrong. That you could go to their house, go into their fridge, and vice versa. That's the 10s. And there's very few 10s, but we can get people towards that, the 7s, 8, 9s in the business world, as opposed to the 1s, 2s, or 3s, where we just don't know who they are, what they're about, don't know where to start. So serving first allows us to build that relationship, and it's easier to ask. And the analogy I use is like marriage proposals. By the time somebody asks for their boyfriend, girlfriend to marry them, in most cases, they're pretty much 100% sure that they're going to be saying yes.
Right.
But think about in the business world, how many times people go in and ask for that marriage proposal, and they've only dated once or twice.
It's too soon.
It's too soon.
It takes the average individual 26 times to interact with a brand before making a buying decision. And if you think about the number of touch points that it takes to get to 26, and most of them just being mass media approaches, not enough personalization, not enough human interaction, that number is going to be a lot bigger without this sort of thing. Chris, I have just really enjoyed our conversation today. So much of this seems basic, but when you really put it into the context of what can be achieved, it is truly brilliant content. And I appreciate your insights, your wisdom share. What is the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Best way is just go to the website, chrisborja.com, CHRISBORJA, and I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, all social media, Instagram. So definitely connect.
Yeah, hopefully people will be networking with you, connecting with you. I deeply appreciate it, Chris. Thank you so much for your appearance on the Integrate and Ignite podcast.
Thank you, Lori.
This episode is complete. Head over to avocetcommunications.com for more ways to scale and grow your business. And be sure to tune in regularly for insights and motivation with host Lori Jones and her guests on the Integrate and Ignite Marketing Podcast.